How you guys doing, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast. Not necessarily a picks video here, just kind of like a preview going over the two practice sessions we had today for both the Truck and the Xfinity Series. And then tomorrow I'm going to be live pretty much towards the end of Truck Series qualifying, probably up until the Truck Series race, just so I can get all my DFS stuff done related to Patreon, related to my own lineups, and talking to you guys before the races. So I just figured I'll probably be live for like 2 hours tomorrow. Working on lineups and everything I just said there. So come in, talk with me if you want to chit chat and, talk about the race and everything and hear my thoughts and how I think people are going to do there. I want to say right now the history column here, the grades are more based on history in road courses and stock cars, not necessarily history of road courses and other series. Like, as we've kind of seen over the past couple of years, sure, road course ringers are good. But they really shine with a lot of laps in stock cars. Like, if you're good in Trans Am, but this is your first ever time in a cup car, even with some practice, even with like this hour practice in both series, you still seem to struggle. We don't see the domination that we used to see way back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago, where the road course ringers from other series could hop into these cars and really put on a show. Here, it's more so just being a good driver in general. Like, the talent really shines specifically for the Truck Series, because this is going to be a mess tomorrow. And the Xfinity Series, you typically see just the good, Xfinity Series drivers throughout the season still perform well. And so, just because the guy has, 4 wins or a championship in Trans Am, I really don't care. I just want to see who has history in, the Truck Series. So, like, for example, why do I have John Nemechek as like a B here? One, because he's in a good car, but if you look at how he's performed either at the Daytona Road Course this year, last year, looking at the Canadian Tire track, or I just went blank on the name. Not Mid-Ohio. The other track. Anyway, so like last year or this year in the Daytona Road Course, finished third. Back in Canada in 2018, finished second. 17th, or in Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, he finished 20th in 2017, won in 2016, 9th and 15th, and 25th in the 14th race there in 2014. And so that's kind of how I just ranked these guys. So like Matt Crafton, for example, his last road courses have been 6th and 4th as the 2 Daytona Road Course races, and then 11th, 8th, 25th, 4th, 2nd, 6th, and 10th. You get the idea at Canada and everything of that nature. So that's kind of how the grading works for this. That's why you see some guys like Johnny Sauter, mainly just because he's had laps in the Truck Series in or at road courses. His 2 Daytona Road Course finishes aren't stellar, but seeing that he's actually consistent in a track or in a week where we have practice, like, he's not having to shake things down like he did last year. So like 18th and 21st at the Daytona Road Course, but 6th, 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 7th, 6th, 8th, and 28th in Canada, things of that nature. That's what I want to look at here. So that's kind of why I have some of these guys ranked as Bs. Like Hailie Deegan, her experience in off-road racing, her experience on, pretty much road courses in general, that's going to help her more. Like, I think she's a B here. Same thing with Kaden Murphy. I know he's coming from the monster truck world and everything, but he's done road course racing in the background with really heavy cars. Like, I think that stuff really helps him here. You've seen Austin Wayne Self really perform well on road courses, and then yet again in this practice session you saw Austin Wayne Self not being horribly off pace here, and so things of that nature. So the notes sections here, I'm more likely going to read these out to you in case you're just listening and not really watching, or if you're watching, I'm going to assume you can't read. So, man, this practice session was pretty useless. Let's just talk about it. So they have a wreck. Or not a wreck. They go, Tate Fogelman blows the motor pretty much right off the bat. So like some guys are like they come out of the pit road, they do their warm-up lap, and that's taking pretty much 2 minutes to get back up to the start-finish line. Some guys only get one time lap before Tate Fogelman blows an issue, and then coming out of the caution, which was basically leaving us with 36 minutes left. You had 72, not being able to fire again. So we finally went green again at 33 minutes and 30 seconds left in the practice session. I expect yellows to be incredibly and stupid long tomorrow. That's just how it's going to be. I mean, maybe it even pushes back the Xfinity Series start. Like, this race could be like a fucking 2.5 hour race for the Truck Series. Like, if they keep throwing these full course yellows at a track that, you know, basically a green flag lap is around 2 minutes and 20 seconds, that's going to be like 7 minutes under caution. And then you do that over and over and over again. And usually cautions are probably going to be like 3 laps. And so easily 15 minutes a caution. I would not be shocked to see that tomorrow. So keep that in mind. Like, it's crazy. We had another yellow come out when the Jordan Anderson truck, number 3 truck, stalled. So yellow came out again. And so at this point, we're not seeing a lot of teams being able to get laps in this practice session. We're nearly 25 minutes in, and we're seeing teams with 1, 2, 3 completed laps because we constantly have yellows either right when guys are starting to get timed again, or guys are only able to do 1 time lap and then bring it back down pit road or stop on the back straightaway while yellow comes out. And so we're not able to see lap times, you know, really show anything. And so times, and this is kind of me just typing as things happened. And so like times are going to be spread out a ton, which we ended up seeing. We had a lot of group of cars, and so like yellow would come out, everybody goes in pit road, and then when they leave pit road again, they're leaving it in a group of like 10, 15 cars. And so say if you're a fast car and you're coming out that pack at the very end, or you're a slow car, you know, you got guys passing you, you're trying to make passes, you're trying to get free real estate to actually figure out what your car has and how the track is doing, and that's slowing you down. Like, these lap times aren't, we really can't use these. I mean, a lot of these guys are catching trucks coming out of the corners, entering the corners in zones that you shouldn't be passing, or guys, slow cars in the fast lane and fast cars having to go in the slow lane or take a long way around the corner. So lap times are pretty useless. So halfway through, you know, even with like 30 minutes left of practice, you really can't use a lot of the laps. So green comes back out at 2 minutes and 28 seconds. So we pretty much have lost, you know, the first 25, 30 minutes of practice, really. At this point, we might have 3 completed laps for some teams. And as I already said, some guys are stopping on the back straightaway during yellow. Some guys are going back to pit lane. This causes some to be able to start a time lap before others. And so technically there's guys who probably did like 15 laps on this track, and only 7 are counted, or only 8 laps technically have a time lap. And so that's why I'm not necessarily concerned about the lap times or things like that. Looking at this, the 83 car spun entering 1, and I got the numbers by the practice session in case you guys don't know who these guys are. And right when this happened, like, I was just thinking that the exit of turn 1 is going to be extremely ugly tomorrow. If it rains, this racetrack, this is going to suck. Road course racing sucks in general. It's boring. But if it's raining, this is going to be an ugly race, man. Absolutely ugly, because these guys do not have any lateral grip whatsoever. They're sliding all over the track. There's a lot of painted area, which if you've ever walked over painted wet concrete, it's super slick. And the whole argument to remove grass and paint it green doesn't really hold much merit when you really consider that, sure, asphalt has a lot of grip. Like, say at Talladega, when they remove the grass in the back straightaway, it had a lot more grip. You can actually slow down there. But if they would have just painted the back straightaway at Talladega, it offers less grip than just unpainted asphalt. But if that's ever wet, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. But I digress. So 83 couldn't get restarted, so it brought out a yellow. I think he did it on purpose, honestly, because he had a flat left front tire, and that probably would have torn the truck up. I think he made I saw it on Twitter, he made a route down one of the access roads to get back to the garage, but I'm pretty sure he brought this yellow out on purpose. All right, so we have I gotta bold these babies here. All right, so yellow came with 28 minutes left in practice. They went back green, but of course Fox was on a commercial. And they were on a commercial for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes after they went green. And so we lost probably 3 minutes of track time to really see anything. And look, Fox sucks. I mean, road course practices suck in general to try and see how each car is doing. So we really didn't see anything. We just see pieces of the track, and you really couldn't follow any fast guys. things like that. One thing to note is that the track is laying down a lot of rubber, which is more than I thought it would. I'm thinking the track is going to be, like I said, I think it's going to be really slick if it rains, and the paint is going to be really slick in the rain. I kind of already mentioned that. John Nemechek, and somebody else was just, I can't remember who it was. I didn't back it up because, hell, I don't really care. The lineups tomorrow are going to be purely based on place differential and finishing position. That's just what it is. I don't care about laps led. I don't care about fast laps. I really don't. I'm just playing place differential. I'm trying to get guys who can finish in the top 10. Don't care where they start. That's just how it is. I either want place differential or guys who are going to finish top 10. So, but John Nemechek and somebody else they were just hitting 10 completed timed laps with 12 minutes left in practice. NASCAR added 5 minutes of practice because they lost so much, and so they went over the hour. They ended at like 3:02 my time. Let's see. And here I'm just reiterating this. I don't really care about practice times. If it's notable if you're top 10 in speeds, like, hey, that shows, okay, you're at least fast, you're not having as many issues. Or if you're bottom 10 in speeds, because there's 43 cars here or 43 trucks, then that's notable. That's the only time practice time has really mattered for me, is if they're really quick or really slow. But other than that, I don't care. I already kind of said lineups are all about place differential and finishing position. If you want to look at the practice times, only 2 drivers did a 10-lap run, so I just didn't really see the need to put 10-lap averages or in here. So this is the finishing. If you haven't seen the, let me move it over. I'm probably blocking this. So this is the results for practice session number 2. And you can see the amount of time lapse that these guys had. Some of these guys got 12, got 11. John Nemechek had the most in this at 15, just because he was pretty much on the track. These teams weren't really concerned about going back into pit lane a lot. They just want to get time on the track and get comfortable with the car. The one thing I am taking away here is when this fast lap was ran. And so this was pretty much last 20 minutes of practice. First 20 here, probably last 10 minutes, last 10 minutes, probably first 10 minutes, first 15 minutes, somewhere around there, middle, later in the practice session, middle, later in the practice session for Eckes, really early for Parker Kligerman, or probably 20 minutes in, middle end, anything. It depends on how many laps they've done. Like if you did only 11 laps and you're running your fast lap on 7, it's probably in the last 20 minutes of practice session. Whereas Tyler Ankrum ran his fastest lap on his last lap. He was struggling a lot. We saw him going to pit road twice. He ran that at the very end of practice session. Same thing with Timmy Hill. That's when Timmy Hill was out there. That's really the only thing to note here. So a lot of the guys who weren't fast off the bat is because they were making adjustments in pit lane. Like Parker Kligerman or Timothy Peters ran his fast lap at the very end of practice. Michael on the 36 ran his at the very end of practice, things of that nature. There, you had I don't think Norm Benning even did a lap. Rayu and Brad were on there. They're pretty slow. I did note pretty much 5 seconds off the pace would be my worry point. And within 2.5 seconds is my point that I actually want to pay attention to. So going back to, if you're top 10 in practice session, I want to try and pay attention to you, or at least look at you, at least consider you. And it's people, like I just said, like good drivers, guys you kind of expect. The GMS crew, Enfinger, Rhodes, Gill, and Kaz Gralla, Crafton, Smith, Sam, John Nemechek, Chase. And you can even include these guys if you want. Paul Menard, it's good to see Paul Menard at least running, inside the top 15 in practice. Parker Kligerman's looking good as well. And then the bottom 10, or pretty much the bottom 13 guys, these are the guys that I'm concerned about and that I really want to avoid tomorrow, even if they qualify well. This is not looking good at all. Like, I don't want Norm, didn't even run a lap, or maybe one. I think he went out, but he didn't get a timed lap. The reuse guys, Jennifer Joe Cobb, I'm not interested in. Corey Roper, Boyd, I'm not interested in these guys. Fogelman blew that motor. So I guess I would probably include Fogelman and guys that I would consider, because he blew a motor. It's not necessarily that they're off pace, but Lawless, Allen, Peters, Kraus was struggling a lot. Lawrence was struggling a lot. So those are the guys that I don't really want to focus on, just off the top of my head. Like, these times are noteworthy because they're so slow. Like, Kraus was struggling. I got to see if he had an engine issue or something, because he shouldn't be that far off the pace. Ryan Truex just really, really struggling here. especially when you run this many laps, like the 36 car did at 16 laps. Like that, that's rough, man. That's bad. That is not what you want to see. I think Kraus had an issue because he only did 5 laps. I have to look into that. I didn't notice that till we were here. But yeah, so tomorrow, it's all place differential. Pretty much all place differential finishing position. That's all I want to look at for the truck series here. And then I also put the owners here because sometimes you have good guys with a bad team, or a good team with somebody that you don't know. So if you don't know who their owners are, it's these guys here, and you can check that out here. So let's go ahead and look at the Xfinity series. All right, so looking at the Xfinity series, same thing here. Is the history column is more so how they've performed in stock cars on road courses and how I see that, and so on and so forth. And so, like Justin Haley, Harrison Burton, Hemrick, I'm not really high on them, whereas people like, obviously Kyle Busch, Cindric, A.J. Allmendinger, Kevin Harvick, Cole Custer, who's run very well in stock cars on road courses, Brandon Jones, like these are the guys that should be fighting for the top 10. And it's a little bit easier to predict the Xfinity series because you typically see the good guys and then the good road course ringers, and then the guys who just suck in the series be pretty much under those guys. Let me. I always forget to finish the rest of these. The practice data is much more useful in the Xfinity series just because we actually had, it stayed out. We had pretty long green flag runs. One thing that was interesting is like some guys are just flat out cutting the corners in the first 10 minutes of this practice session, and nobody really mentioned on the broadcast. But like a lot of the turns that don't have those little orange turtles there, guys are just cutting through them. Like they're clearly just going over the rumble strips, and so I'm curious about what they'll do there. Cindric pitted pretty much within his first lap. Like I think Cindric's the favorite to win this race tomorrow. He pitted like right off the bat. Like he knows what that car needs. He doesn't need the track time. He's more concerned about dialing his car in. And then what do you know? He ended up being top of the board at the end of the practice session. So Austin Cindric should be the favorite to win. Now, if he starts first, if he leads all the laps, maybe haven't really messed around with the possible or the projected DK points yet, but it's gonna be close, man. Depends how many place differential guys go there, because I'm tempted to put Cindric in maybe a quarter of my lines. I'm going to go back. I'm going to play a few more lines this week, probably about 5 for each of the races, but we'll figure it out there. So maybe 1 with Austin Cindric or 2. Still thinking about it there. Hemrick lost power steering early. This is a note that I was kind of mentioning here, but I'll say it here. Like in these cars compared to the trucks, the road course ringers and then the good drivers should do well here. And so like Preston Pardus, for example, he's finished absolutely disgusting in the Xfinity series, but he's always in the front. He always gets caught up in wrecks. If Pardus can make it through a race, which I think it's going to really work here because this is a more European-style road course. It's more open. We have a lot of runoff room. A lot of American road courses either have grass or walls right next to the racing surface, and so places like this should help Pardus really do better. Than how he's been doing. They should be able to stand out easier compared to the trucks because the trucks is just a freaking mess. Like I said, I'm looking for ringers who have stock car laps. Chris Wright blew a motor in Sam Hunt's 28 car. Bailey Curry blew a motor as well. And that was like a 7-minute yellow. And so we got through half the practice session with pretty much without anything up until Chris Wright blowing the motor. And then Bailey Curry doing it. And so this is like a 7-minute yellow. Like they lost like 7 minutes of practice with Curry blowing a motor, so I don't know if it just blew up and sprayed crap all over the track or just oil. I don't know. But it was a pretty long yellow. Green came back out with about 20 minutes left in practice. Practice times are much more useful here, unlike the trucks, as I just said. Sieg also had a motor issue. And in my mind, I can't figure out why they're having so many motor issues here. Like, is it because this track is so rough? Is it the elevation changes and suspension acting weird? And I mean, is stuff not tight on the truck or on the car? Like, I don't know what's up with all the motor issues. I really can't fathom that unless these guys are just horrible engine builders, or unless like I don't think it's related to the shifting of the transmission because these are drivers. These are professional drivers. They're not just, working the drivetrain, or they're not working the transmission like a freaking monkey or anything like that. Like, they're not just abusing everything. So I don't know what's going on that's causing all these motor issues, but that is kind of worrying. And then we also had Brandon Brown and the 6 car have issues as well around the same time with 5 minutes left in practice. I think Brandon Brown had an engine issue as well. I think the 6 had an engine failure. And so throughout the 2 hours of the practice sessions between the two series, we saw like 12 to 13, 14 vehicles have engine problems, which is really, really weird. Like, that is way out of left field. I don't know what the heck's going on there. And it's happening to equipment across the board. Top tier teams, lower tier teams. Is it because these guys are just hopping those curbs? Like I said earlier, they were kind of just cutting curbs earlier. Did that mess stuff up? And then, of course, the fabulous reporting by Fox isn't telling us what's going on. They're just saying, hey, they're having motor issues. Or they talked to Ryan Sieg. Like, who cares about Sieg? Like, hey, what happened to Bailey Curry? Or they talked to Chris Wright, which, I mean. So that's it. I wanted to bring one thing up in terms of making the field, and then we'll talk about some practice times here. Let me just check one other thing right here. Okay, that's still there. So looking at the field, 43 cars are here this week. They're going for 31 spots. The fastest 31 cars will automatically be locked into the field based on their lap times, with the 5 remaining spots being given out through 2021 owner points. Now, owner points are, let me see, where was I reading this again? Oh, man. Sorry. I'll make sure I make it up for you. Hold on, drivers. Hold on. Where did I... Hold on. Okay, I found it. Sorry, I had to go through. In the Xfinity series for this year, provisionals are handed out based on the highest number of races attempted first. So that's why we've seen, all these backmarker teams just throwing in cars. That's why we've seen the NBA Motorsports here every single week to try and help them race their way into races like this, to where I don't think they're going to make it in on time. But looking at the teams who need to make their way in, like the guys locked in are pretty much top 4 in points, and then past champions, so Cindric, Hemrick, Burton, Allmendinger, Jeb Burton, and then most of the big teams are locked in. Like Miguel Paludo should lock his way in, unless things just really go haywire. Like, they're realistically locked in. This is broken down by TobyChristie.com. So Chris Wright should get in, 20 attempts, 20th in the Xfinity Series points. The worrying area is people like Landon Castle, Custer, Williams, Kevin Harvick, Hill, LeBay, and Andy Lally. They should be able to get in on points, but it's these guys could go home if they just really perform bad or something happens in qualifying. And now the guys who should really have to race their way in: Earnhardt, Weatherman, Light, Jade Buford, Curry, Massarella, Howard, Graff, Ryan Ellis, and then these guys who must qualify their way in: Spencer Plumlee, 6 car, Jesse Little in the 78, Greg Alding 52, Boris Sett in the 13, Austin Dillon in the 77, Tyler Reddick in the 31, and Preston Pardis. These guys are the ones that need to race their way in. I just want to put that out there. So if you are looking at their practice times and seeing how these guys are doing, in case you're just a fan or whatever, I want to at least say that for me, so I know what's going on. Looking at practice data, it's the guys who we think it's going to be. Practice data, top 10 fastest times: Austin Cindric, Hemrick. Let me do this. Austin Cindric, Hemrick, Reddick, Kyle Busch, A.J. Allmendinger, Noah Gragson, Alex LeBay, Justin Allgaier, Jeb Burton, Myatt Snider. The guys that you think. Myatt Snider, I wanted to point that out. I have him ranked as an A on here. He should be an A. He's a B, my bad, B, but he's $6,700. These are the type of tracks he grew up racing on. Like, Myatt Snider should be way more expensive. Like, Myatt Snider is a really, really nice place right here. The bottom 10 guys, we're looking at Bailey Curry, Ryan Sieg, obviously they had issues, Cesar Bassarelli, Joe Graff Jr., Colby Howard, Ryan Ellis, Stephen Light, Earnhardt, Williams, Landon Castle, Timmy Hill, Jesse Little, and Greg Alding, your bottom 13. We saw Brandon Jones pretty much off pace. He ran 10 laps and was 4 seconds off pace. We had Austin Dillon in the 77. He was 23rd fastest, only did 3 laps. And what was the other guy that was like Boris said? I wanted to mention Boris said. I like Boris said as a driver in general. I like his history. He should perform extremely well here. I know it's a Carl Long car, but I'm looking forward to checking out how Boris said did, and then looking at lap averages. We had, let me see. Let me get this over here. I apologize. I just realized I was reading it off my second monitor, and I didn't put it up here on the screen for you, so I highlighted everything. This is basically just everything I was talking about. These are the practice times in case you haven't seen it or whatever, and you want to see how many laps these guys did, which is one thing that I want to see is like how many decent laps these guys did here. And so probably need to bold this for you so we could look, because this is really the main thing that matters is who's looking bad, who's looking all right, and who's looking very good. That's what it boils down to, looking at the amount of laps that they ran. Kyle Busch looking extremely well. Yeah, I like Kyle Busch. I mean, it's these five. These five are the guys that you should think is going to be there. It's A.J. Allmendinger, Busch, Reddick, Hemrick, and Cindric. That's just how I think it's going to go. And then we'll probably have in the race people like Alex Labay, Preston Pardus, Andy Lally, Paludo, Cole Custer fighting for the top 10. And then, I think that's how it's going to be. I really like the place differential in this race because you have a lot of quote-unquote slow cars with good guys who should qualify in the 20s, who should be able to race their way up into the top 15. But looking at laps led, notables back here, Michael Annett struggling, not looking good at all. Brandon Jones, like I said, he's struggling as well, running 10 laps, running his fastest lap late in the session, still being slow. That's a bit worrying, or not worrying. It's good for place differential, good for DFS, just in general, that's kind of shocking, seeing how slow, Jones is in that, and how slow Michael Annett is. Ryan Ellis, that's just a slow car. Same thing with Joe Graff Jr. Joe Graff Jr. just sucks. Hopefully he doesn't make the race. That'd be awesome. Get rid of Joe Graff Jr. Put somebody else who really deserves to be in this race. Put him in this race. Looking at, oh yes, that's what I was looking at. Fastest times. Let's see. Where's my 5-lap averages? Oh boy. I'm all over the place for this. So this is why I thought I was going crazy on my other monitor. I was just quickly looking at 5-lap averages, and it's not changing on the NASCAR.com. Usually it'll change the list like it's a like it's a like a spreadsheet. It'll list the highest or lowest depending on when you click. They just put this up. Usually that's an issue that happens early when they put it up. But these are the guys with their with 5-lap averages, because that's the only thing we had. We didn't have anybody who ran a 10-lap average. But this is where they're at right here. Pardus is looking good. Like I don't mind that at all. Running laps, looking fine here. You typically want to see a lower number here. That's indicating that they're faster, and so technically in the 5-lap averages, it should be Kyle Busch is the fastest, and then I think it's not Burton, it's somebody else. Maybe it is Burton. Burton and Custer's second. So fastest Kyle Busch, Burton, Cole Custer, your top 3 in 5-lap averages, right? Unless there's a 40.3 I missed, which I did not. Oh, Reddick. 39. Riveting coverage, Brandon. Good job. 6-3. So it's Kyle Busch, Reddick, Burton, Custer, your top 4 in 5-lap averages. And that's basically where we're at right now. Like I said, tomorrow I'll be live pretty much, probably last 10 minutes, probably last what is it, last session, like how the whole field goes in the top 10 or 12 or whatever qualifies again. I'll probably go live around there just because I'm setting up the bottom half of the field, and we already know who's locked in and who isn't. So I'll probably go live around that for the Truck Series, and then just be live probably up until the Truck Series race, and we'll chat and talk about things there. So thanks for checking it out. Thanks for hanging out here for 30 minutes, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.